being.
Okay, so since I proposed this, I'll take the lead here. I put up a Google Doc called Music Careers. I think it might, did you also start one?
Yeah, Phil started one.
Sorry.
Mine's better.
Probably.
Okay, I'll
So
switch the
I
link.
put some stuff in it, but I didn't.
What is yours? Is it in the?
Is it in the folder?
I think so. I never
I'll
really
link
checked it.
Okay, well, if it's in the folder, I can
Things people are pushing.
grab the link.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, so where I was starting here was some of the things that people are kind of trying to push in terms of music reform, music curriculum reform, in order to better prepare people for careers. I'm sure you're all familiar with the complaint that basically music schools are designed to produce orchestral musicians, and then nobody gets a job in an orchestra. And the people who get jobs tend to be the people who are really flexible in some way, or they know about music business, or they get connections through an internship or something like that, or they develop their own career path. And so I'm just curious if we can think through how we fit into that. And it may be that we'll decide, well, that's maybe not our job, that our job is to get students to think in broad ways, to be creative, and then what they do with that is up to them. But it may be that there are some specific things that we decide that are really coherent with our mission as music theory instructors, or people who push that side of the music degree. So anyway, I wanted to start. I've got three things, three sort of headings in my Google Doc. You may want to pull it up, because I think it will be helpful to kind of keep track of some of the things that people are saying. The way I've thought about organizing this, and I'm also open to other ideas, we start by just talking about some of the trendy things that people are pushing. So I've put a couple in here already. So very often people say, oh man, I wish I'd learned about pop music, or that I could be fluent in other styles rather than Bach or Brahms. So broad stylistic diversity is one of those things. Music business and entrepreneurship is increasingly pushed by people who have this kind of perspective of preparing people for careers. That might also be combined with the legal perspective, so understanding music copyright and how that all works. Music technology is a big piece of this, so and that's kind of combined with music production, the next thing I put, so that people can actually go out there and do this kind of behind the scenes jobs. I guess music arranging is another big one, that it's not terribly hard to get a job, a single job, in music arranging for a wedding or something.
Teaching is probably just common.
Sorry?
Teaching is probably something that most music companies.
Yeah, teaching is huge.
But is that considered?
But that's not like one of these trendy things that people are saying, well, why aren't we doing this?
Yeah.
So are there other things that occur to people?
Arts administration.
Okay.
Well, interdisciplinary stuff. Because there are a lot of fields that, anything like advertising, where media is often
Sure.
incorporated, but not always music and sound, and that could actually lead to a pretty decent career opportunity.
I actually heard somewhere that people who work in this flight towers, what is it, like the air traffic controllers, like there are more music graduates in air traffic control than any other discipline, because like they're very detail focused. They're very good with like managing things holistically.
Also, the exercise is in the law.
Yeah.
They conduct lots of
So 20
Other things that people think of that are part of that conversation?
What about like maybe chamber music organizing, like grant writing and outreach,
Sure.
kind of community outreach type stuff?
I think in terms of, this is it's a little bit tangential, but in terms of kind of coming from the repertoire we tend to teach out into the world, there is now so much more, and I think we've been thinking in this like classical pop rock binary, but there's so much other music going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there is, with the analytical approaches to world music material, there's more and more material available Well, I mean, it's tricky, but you know, some of this material you can actually learn and adapt, but another way to approach it is to work with colleagues in ecology, which I did at Wesleyan because it was all around me, in terms of doing some more with world music in theory classrooms. So it's
Yeah, Megan, thanks for your tweet. The CMS manifesto is absolutely one of the things that's part of this conversation. They specifically talk about understanding world music. They specifically talk about improvisation. So having a more of a creative model rather than an interpretive model. Although some people would question that distinction.
We also maybe throw in just administrative pressure institutionally. I mean, there might be an idea that if we embrace certain other things, then the music schools will have greater solvency financially. Now, I don't think that's actually been demonstrated. The fact that Jim Buehler pointed this out on Twitter a few weeks ago. Sorry, Jim, if you didn't want me to repeat this on but it was like nobody's really copied the Berkeley model.
Right.
And Berkeley is now joining, is it BC or BU? I think it's BU. And are no longer going to be their own thing anymore. And I haven't seen why. Maybe they're just mutually advantageous for a lot of reasons. But the fact that these new like schools of pop music have not been popping up all over the place seems to suggest maybe that isn't a model that we should try to fold into.
Part of that maybe, I have a student who went to Berkeley for a while that I'm working with fairly closely, and his impression was that all they wanted was his money. So it may not just be the model of pop music, but it may be that at least in that case, and maybe because of the forces pushing this kind of thing, that money is tied into it a little bit more closely than a lot of us are. I mean, we're all subject to budget pressures, but we're all shielded from it to some extent as well by certain kinds of things that were set up long before us. Okay, are there other things? This seems like a pretty good list.
When you say music technology, do you mean specifically music technology or technology as it interacts with music, or as music as it interacts with technology? You're welcome to take it anyway, but I was thinking of it more on the side of the production type stuff. So that students should be able to know how to run a sequencer, how to record and process and do things like that. The reason why I ask is because there's of course some music as it combines with video games.
Yeah.
There are people working in that area looking for people with music backgrounds who would provide the appropriate sounds.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a funny story with this, associated with this, and maybe it's not so funny, maybe you guys have been dealing with this all along and we don't side of the border a little bit slow, but my washing machine broke down a few months ago and I had to get a new one. Somebody had a story here about, no, sorry, I just put my phone. Sidebar. Anyway, long story short, got a washing machine, just, whatever basic stuff it needed to do, and turned it on, and it beeps, but it also plays, right? So when it starts, it plays a sequence, dee-da-da-dee-da-dum.
You
And then it's a Samsung, exactly, right? And then it programs, and then the music programs me, because when it's time to take out the lawn, when it's time to fish it out, what does it play? No,
it plays the track.
Yeah, that plays what?
Di Forella.
Sure.
Da-dee-da-da-da-dee.
Oh, the longer tune. Okay.
And
Are you
it's
saying
so-
the
Turn off button.
Yeah, that the turn off button is the the downward sequence, right? But when it's time for me to do my job, as the machine does it's part of what the machine can't do is take the clothes up, right? So that's anyway, so clearly, when it first happened, I thought, how cheeky is that? And then I thought, somebody with a music degree or some undergraduate program had to have been involved in this. And so that's just one example of old technology in the washing machine, but music is ubiquitous, right? So it's part of every piece of equipment. I imagine that there could be all kinds of cheekiness going on with all kinds of machines if music rights were hired. But it's that kind of, it's not quite an industry yet, but I can see how people would be picking people up who know repertoire, who could hear, who could, do some, unless you have studied music, you wouldn't pick up on that. But that's a really cheeky thing to do. I mean, if you get it, it's like, I wish I could turn that off sometimes. On the other hand, other people in my family love it. They stop what they're doing and they run to the machine.
Well, something I've been thinking about a lot lately, because I'm on the interdisciplinary opportunities task force for our strategic planning initiative. I think the fact that I can say that's the prerequisite for being on the task. But just thinking about possible partnerships on campus with things that people do well here, which is not entirely unique. But we have a big tech industry here. Data analysis is really growing. That's something where there aren't as many graduates as there are jobs for people highly skilled in it, and they pay pretty well. And I've talked to a few prospective graduate students, one who we almost got here, who was really open to the idea that maybe what she's interested in music theory, in terms of analyzing patterns and systems and relationships, could be something that's transfers over into analyzing patterns and systems and relationships in other ways. And that's some of the stuff that we do in computational analysis and digital humanities work. Could help music theory, but could also then be a possible opening for other doors that around here, there are a lot of places to do internships and things. And so I'm just wondering how much of instead of making the music degree more professionally directed, which means much more timely and therefore not potentially less timeless and less applicable 20 or 30 years from now when they finish paying off their loans, for example. But instead, possibly having it open up to applicability outside music and being more of a liberal arts where music is your focus. And you are developing skills and opening relationships with things that could lead to professional music, but could lead to professions out of music rather than finding new creative ways to squeeze some income money out of a field that's hard pressed right now.
This is kind of in some ways a nice transition into the next big heading, which is what are some of the things we already do that feed into this discussion. And part of the reason just for thinking through this is it may help us think of things that we maybe should already do but should do more of, or we should help make sure that students understand the broader applicability, that it's not just something that we're going to do in this class, but that this is something that's transferable. And so that's one of those things. So understanding the component processes or some of the thinking processes of music as applicable to other things, whether it's understanding, analyzing data or noticing patterns being applicable to data analysis. Other examples people can think of?
I mean, a little bit against the grain of the direction we've been going, but deserves reiterating. It's just that there's so many professions in which writing is important, being able to write well, and we haven't really talked about that yet. Right. If you can have well about music.
And we actually had something of a debate last year, whether it was our job as music theorists to have writing in our classes at all. And some people thought definitely not. Definitely not. But
Yes.
understanding it as part of this discourse suggests, yes, absolutely.
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things that my dean keeps throwing at us is that employers are really disappointed in recent undergrad or recent graduates thinking abilities, just abilities to take on a task on their own. And music is a discipline which does that well, trains that well.
Arguably not in theory class, in the traditional theory class. If you're told, here's a worksheet with 10 key signatures, get the right answer wrong, mark you wrong. That's not great preparation.
Music discipline.
Yeah, okay, but then how do we as music theorists fit into that? Well, obviously one way is that if we're focused on things like inquiry-based learning or standards-based grading or something like that, letting people sort of choose some of their paths to some of these goals, that actually could be good preparation for taking initiative in a job situation.
I guess my key question in considering all this is that, what do you tell an 18-year-old coming freshman? Hey, you're not going to have a career in music, but here's some things that we're going to work on.
Not necessarily. I mean, there will be a few that will get jobs in orchestra. There will be a few that become, high school band and choir conductors. Actually, quite a few of those. But then there are going to be a bunch of people who think they're going to make it in music, and they won't go into the career that they imagined. And it would be nice if they can transition into something else if we've gotten them these other skills.
It seems like the place for this would be more in the kind of the capstone situation end of the degree, where you're having the students reflect on the skills that they've acquired, knowledge that they've acquired, and how they can apply that across several disciplines.
Sure, but then you need to make sure that that's also in the curriculum, so that there's something to reflect.
I think that also a lot of students, I mean, I find that a lot of students in my 3 classes just have the obvious idea of like small odds are that they're going to get the job that they've always been getting. They just don't have any idea. And I know that nobody else is going to tell them. And I can't help but feel a very pressing responsibility as an educator to break it to them. Not in a painful way, but what, like, this is the reality. How many orchestras went out of business this year? Okay, let's look at the stats. How many orchestras went on strike? Why? You know, and have these discussions. Just scrap a day's worth of sightseeing or whatever, and be like, this is important. I know nobody else is talking to you about this, so you might as well. Nobody has been up in arms about like, oh no, let's do more sightseeing. And all of them have been incredibly grateful. Like, oh my gosh, thank you for telling us this. Nobody has ever told us this before. Why not?
And by the way, if you think you're gonna become a theory teacher like me or teach in a university, here's what being an adjunct is.
Yeah, exactly. It's terrible, obviously. And so, I mean, just like breaking that to them, I mean, that can start the gears working towards a more productive place. But in other words, instead of being a devastating conversation, it can be, here are the realistic challenges. What can you do to be gods? How can you make yourself stand out? How can you make a music career that is creative, that can draw attention to itself, that is unique, that people will be willing to support, crowdfund? And if you're not thinking of those things early on in the program, it's even more devastating to learn about it after you graduate. And so I mean, I think you just need to like bring these things up, just like we know some facts. It's just like the probability is going to really get some productive gears in motion.
I think one of the best ways of doing that is just to try. So you want to learn about crowdfunding, well, create a project that has a real result that you can maybe serve the community in some way and try to get crowdfunding.
Have you ever done that as part of the problem?
I've done a few things I was going to throw on the table that maybe are along similar lines. One thing I'm looking at trying to do this year, would be I'm working with some English department whose students work with different governmental organizations like Public Works or Bus or what have you to create text for advertisements. And then they create videos using this text, or the videos have music, and so maybe we could actually get music students to compose or improvise music or something. So somehow bring more attention to make these advertisements more effective. And that would be kind of like real hands-on. Like it could cover a lot of the outcomes that we already talked about with composing, but it could actually be then put in circles or something. And in the past, I've had students do videos as well, where they create music that, where they're working with different human rights organizations or what have you to, again, try to use music to make an impact. And the music makes an impact more immediately than almost any other form of communication that we have. And so it just alerts the students like, why, the stuff I touch every day has the power to change the world, really. So how can we start leveraging that for causes that they care about? Yeah, and so I think, actually I think the possibilities are endless. Last year, I proposed that session where we talked about like outreach oriented PBL problems or outreach oriented group collaborative projects. But and actually to just highlight, Megan, you kind of posed the question about, are we, do we want, well, is the edge of the question really about turning our theory classes into like on the job, or like job training, or do you think
I was
we can have
actually just in the
kind of
process
a
of
hybrid of that? Like, do you
Oh.
think we could, I think this is a case where maybe we could have like too, where we still teach the content we want to teach, but we really help them see how that content is relevant to all sorts of possible things that could preclude them to.
Yeah, I feel like I'm now seeing kind of the other end of the spectrum of students coming to me as a theory teacher and saying, like, expecting job training. And like trying to, that's not what this is. Like this, I'm not training you to become a graduate student in music theory like that. No. But I feel like a lot of students are, at least a lot of the incoming undergraduates that I'm seeing now are coming in with that mentality of, I'm going to come here and I'm going to get a degree, and once I have my degree, I will get my job because that's what you're training me to do. And it's kind of almost the opposite of, instead of, I want to be a flutist in the New York Philharmonic, it's more of the, you know, and I'm coming here to become a better flutist. It's now like, okay, well, I just need a job and I like being in bands, so I guess that'll be my job, so give me my job. And that's also very hard to, like, well, not even so much that, but more of a, I feel like it's coming from this whole, like, you know, my parents got degrees and then they got jobs in that field. Now I'm going to get a degree in the field so that I can get a job in the field. It's like college isn't job. It's so, you know, it's so many things, but it's not just, here, let me train you so you can go do this thing. It's so much more. And I'm finding more and more, especially working with freshmen last year, that it's really hard for them to kind of really grapple and really grok the idea of, you know, there's more to this kind of higher ed experience and being a musician in a higher ed setting than just, I'm gonna be spit out of the system for the specific job.
There's a lot of research on employers saying that they want people who don't necessarily already have the skills and experience, but that they have potential to develop, because the skills are good right now, but then in 5 years, if that person has just learned those skills, it's not useful. There's also research to show that businesses don't follow through on that in their hiring practices, that they tend to just favor the people who have the skills rather than having shown potential, which is probably, well, there's all kinds of things that those two things say. But we can always talk about that we're developing them as thinkers, and that in a way that's a better job skill than some of these other. At the same time, I don't think there's any harm in incorporating some job skills. So.
I think two thoughts. I mean, I'm curious, because I always feel a little bit frustrated. I don't know more about what undergraduates do afterwards, whether, you know, to find out, A, what are they doing, and B, what do they find useful in their degree that is useful for them. But also, I love Danny's idea, and I'm just imagining, I'm starting to imagine a service learning course for the students. I mean, it's almost more of a composition course, but maybe we could teach it.
But it's not as creative.
Well, no, I mean, what I'm imagining is you go out, the students go out to various nonprofits and say, I'm at your service, can I write some music for you, you know, for the videos, for whatever you want.
Yeah, one other colleague I was just talking with was just like, why don't you get your students to write jingles for like the organic chemistry class to help them memorize concepts? Like, that could be like,
Right.
all through your undergrad you could work like, and you would have to write the jingle. Like sound layer, just little things, like, they might be giant substances.
Well, and I know for myself, I mean, as a composer, I think one of like my greatest educational disappointments was that when I went to school as an undergrad to be a composer, the composition department was in no way integrated with dance, film, video game design, marketing, and like, I guess I was just like super naive, but like these were all elements of my life, like as a teenager, in which I cared about and loved music. And when I showed up as a composer and it was like, you know, we don't do any of that stuff, I was disappointed. It was like, wait a minute, like I engage music in all of these different ways. How are you guys not working together, like for mutual benefit on a college campus, where there are lots of people who need music? And the bottom line is, most college campuses simply are not designed for the these guys. So those types of relationships can sometimes take a lot of time to forge, but I think they can be incredibly beneficial, both long-term, like engendering very important just like thinking skills, as well as practical, I work with you, you work with me, let's solve problems together skills that are arguably applicable in any position you
Does anybody do much with music technology and music production outside of a class called music technology? Apart from using music notation software.
When I was an undergrad, I took a music class, so I'm totally blanking on what it was called. It was like electronic music or something, which I guess could be like
more
technology.
like in the theory core.
Well, this was, I mean, it was taught by a theorist,
Okay.
and it was mostly theorists, or theory-like people who took it. It was one of the like 300 level like theory electives that you could choose to take, and it.
Maybe I think I didn't ask my question very well. So what I'm thinking is obviously there are classes out there meant to teach people about technology. To what extent do we just incorporate technology just in creative ways? Like, do we have students do projects that happen to help them understand how this might be useful, how to use it, that sort of thing, in classes that are not necessarily dedicated to you will learn this.
We were, in Charleston, we were able to drop the university's requirement for this is like a 1 or 2 credit class on technology usage because the students were doing so much in the musicianship core with, I mean, not only music technology, but with web-based stuff. They were doing blogs and publishing for some of the writing projects and using Twitter. But between the social media and the writing and the music technology, that was enough for the department chair to reduce that other requirement, which gave me more elected space.
Something I teach analytics for all of our freshman majors and websites that have other video, Twitter feeds and other websites. And more and more I'm trying to get them to do projects that feed into that. Those presentations are cool. There's actually some stuff on Twitter which is pretty good. And maybe we could distinguish between where you need to find what you need, like job training, and whether there's a distinction between job training and like job creation. So not so much saying, here's this little box, I'm going to train you to do this thing, but training a musician or training your students to be able to think about all the ways in which music could create new types of musical activities that could lead to a paycheck or what have you. Do you see a distinction between these two things? Chris, because I know you have a couple of tweets. I don't know if any of us are representing the Scott Walker camp.
Well, and he's an easy foil.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's training people irrespective of the neoliberal capitalist economy. And I think that's probably irresponsible. And just saying, oh, we're all about pursuit of truth and growth and musicianship, and who cares about how much debt you'll have when you leave here and how you're going to pay that off. I think that's irresponsible. There's preparing people for the workforce as it exists now, which one doesn't prepare them to lead it. It only prepares them to serve it. And I think that is irresponsible educationally. I think there's something in the middle. I've been going off on this for a while from the perspective of social democracy, preparing students to critique the capitalist system as something that the capitalist system needs to survive. Like, we need people who can think critically about justice and equity and fairness and how to make weird inroads in places within the system that we're in. And I think that ultimately, I think we're stuck with that. As long as education costs as much as it is, there's going to be a cry for return on investment. And I think that the people who are withholding funds from education are doing it sometimes with that in mind. That what Scott Walker, with the Wisconsin idea, taking the pursuit of truth out of the mission of the University of Wisconsin, inserting workforce preparation, doing so in a budget meeting that doesn't get public oversight, let alone full legislative process, at the same time that they were trying to push a law that would remove the open records process so people wouldn't even know who voted for or against or even introduced some of these measures. It's all part of a coordinated attack on the ability of people to critique what government is doing and know what government is doing. And and he knows by going after the UW system and by removing the tenure protections of faculty and taking money away and making tuition more expensive so that people are clamoring for it's got to be an investment in my future. It's all playing into people buying into this ideology. And I think that's something that we absolutely need to prepare our students to deal with, but we can't do it by saying that's the way it should be. We're going to give you the demands of the neoliberal assault on education. I think we need to prepare people to fight that, make inroads into it, survive long enough to do something about it. but not just to survive and have that be it. I don't think we're post-apocalyptic quite yet. I think we got some fight left.
And it's also so like selective in the data we choose. Like those measurements I say, like, what is your income at graduation? Not like what is your
Not 10 years.
10 years later?
And the liberal arts outdo almost every professional school.
Absolutely.
And I think as music schools, we can, because we're liberal arts and professional. And I think if we look at like, we can outdo law schools long-term. Or maybe pre-law, these are undergrads, sorry, pre-law programs, long-term. People with a liberal arts basis. No, but there are a lot of unemployed lawyers. There are a lot of unemployed lawyers. There are a lot of underemployed lawyers, just like there are musicians. But on the degree par, on undergrad, the liberal arts are outdoing almost every professional program except for engineering. And in career-long earning. And that's something we need to tell people. and that you won't make it all your first year. But if we prepare you to make it all in the first year, the first 5 years, we're not actually, like that's mutually exclusive to an extent. We're preparing you to have that earning in 30 years. And so even the earning, but I still don't want to say, and therefore do the liberal arts because it will make you more money 30 years from now. I want to say, okay, that's a side benefit to cancel out that question so that we can say, what should we really be about?
But it's having that piece of evidence for when they say, well, upon graduation, the science is what they say actually.
One thing that I'm thinking about is the connection to our earlier discussion with Scott. There's this cry from the performance and ensemble staff. Hey, look, is there any way you can teach your students to transfer the knowledge into the classes their own ensemble training? And to a certain extent, I mean, there's also a connection there that we perhaps ought to consider in relation to the ideal orchestral position. I mean, even if we were to just kind of take face value that like what general music education is for is to generate more orchestral musicians. Let's just say that's what it is, even though it isn't. I mean, orchestral repertoire isn't all bought to proms. I mean, it's a lot of like, in my mind, I always think about it as kind of like the Russian problem. Like, there's a lot of like Shostakovich and Prokofiev and Stravinsky and stuff that generally is kind of like, well, it is marginalized. And so even if our curriculum was created and its purpose was to generate more functioning orchestral musicians, it's not even doing that very well, I don't think. Because we're still failing to like generate connections between what we're teaching and all of this stuff that these students would do in these ideal positions. Not to mention the fact that like a lot of orchestras now, I think like the Detroit Symphony now, in their contract, they now include outreach. So it's like, just like even those ideal jobs are now like transforming into these other things where the students are going to require different sets of skills. These are things that are sort of
I agree with what Chris said about training to lead as opposed to training to follow. And we can often, I hear people often say that we train people to follow. I think that other disciplines would say the same in the graduate level. I think if there's anything that we can lay claim to is teaching students how to listen. And how to listen concretely, but also how to listen even in abstract contexts and to make connections, even on the fly, especially when we're teaching improvisation. And I've taken to giving my students a speech if I get to a point where I feel it's needed, where I tell them that I see this skill just falling away from our society as we begin to interact more on social media. And as music becomes ubiquitous, so we can't distinguish between what we're hearing and what we're not hearing, and it's sort of just in the background. And I just gave a bit of a talk like that in the intensive theory course that I just taught, and explained to them how knowing how to listen is actually extremely important, how to take in data this way through your ears, and being very, very attuned to what's happening, the sort of connections that you might be able to make that's not in front of you visually, but orally. And how there's a limited group of people coming up to do that. And that in the theory classes, whether it's theory or all skills, is where you learn to develop that individually. You can hone that in your ensembles and everywhere else, but this is where you learn to do that by yourself and how you can get better at it. And if you're able to listen, and years from now, as I kind of look forward to what's going on, it's going to be people who know how to listen that are going to lead. Because everybody else is going to be missing a lot of other connections. And even now, if you look at the CEOs that are really effective, they are people who know how to listen and know how to make connections. It's going on in the organization, and they're the ones leading. So this is what I've been telling my students, and the last time everybody just applauded, they got it. So how can you leverage that? If you know you have this skill and this ability, how can you get better at it? And that's buy-in as well. But then how can you leverage, if you know this about yourself and if you're developing this, how then do you create a job for yourself? That's what they're going to have to be able to do. And how do you know that you can lead? Because you can lead. You know that you can lead. You have this ability for others. So if we as a community can make them champion, I think it's that, and I think it's a very strong claim.
One of the, I think you're spot on for some really important stuff there. Another sort of cog I'll throw in the mix here is I also can't help but wonder like what role our professional degree programs play in this. I mean, you have the MM, the DMA, which are, the degrees that were created under the guise of and so that's the whole purpose of a professional degree, is to create a professional. And how are we going to conceive of and teach to those students and to those degrees in a different way than a BA or an MFA or a PhD? But I don't know. To me, that's just one more cog. Is we have these professional degrees that are operating under some sort of guise of being professional. And I don't know what that is.
Well, I mean, it gives credence to the music theory classroom as a place for this whenever you have them all in the same room. Very soon. They're all in there at once, so that's the place to.
Well, and when there's a hierarchy embedded in there, when scholarships go to the BMs more than the BAs or the BMEs, or when there are different standards that need to be passed in order to go on to the next semester or have it count towards your transcript, I'm always really uncomfortable with knowing that some of my students don't have to do quite so well as others, or that they, that actually some of the really gifted ones don't have the same scholarship opportunities because it's not their chops that they got in here sometimes. And yeah.
So we've kind of drifted into talking about our role with regard to jobs and the broader world. I think I'll let that continue, but is there anything else that people would like to add to the list? Things that people do that they think are useful in helping prepare students for later careers, and I don't mean necessarily so I think whatever.
One of the things that I was thinking about was you mentioned the idea of capstone projects. That is, I don't know how many people here have their seniors do some kind of capstone project, but that is a situation in which individual initiative is required over planning project, executing it over a long span. And that can be, for me, it was a strong trait. Oh, yeah, this is cool.
A lot of people consider capstone degrees in senior settings, which, that's just their time, like preparing the semester.
Right, so that's, right. So that's an obvious capstone project. Here's my bias coming from the been teaching in a liberal arts context for a long time, and still transferring over. So, you know, but what is our role if the senior side is the capstone project? What is our role? How much are they writing program notes? How much are they thinking about the program notes that they write? It's a paper that goes along with it.
Also, how much of their interpretations are generated by them versus just 4 years of a teacher feeding them ideas.
Right, which also relates to if they're improvising and generating their own musical ideas, they are going to be having more person-centered style and performance as well.
I found by the time we're seniors, it's to me it's 90 day, like this person does, this person doesn't. That's what's sad actually.
I think that's one of the most important skills that anyone can get in college is the ability to think critically and independently. And if we kind of structure our theory classes such that we're just kind of spoon feeding and they're just passively, you know, taking it in one ear and out the other, and oh, maybe I'll memorize that so that I can get a good grade on this exam. That kind of older model that we've kind of been talking about, we were just different ways to approach, you know, whether it's flipping or just doing more student activities and that sort of thing, but finding ways to get students thinking more independently and critically, I think is just paramount to any degree, and especially for us. And if they get that skill, which you can get that in computer classes, and you should, then I think you'll have a leg up for any job.
Sorry. One thing we've strongly considered incorporating into our theory curriculum is having faculty from across the school come in and not give a bio or anything, but just tell them about kind of their experiences with music. Because our students come in with a very limited, well, I want to be this, or I'm going to be a band director, or I'm going to do this, or whatever the case is. And by doing that, they're being presented with a range of different things that the music degree can do for you. Because not everybody makes it to being a college professor through the same path. So here's all the things that I was doing, and that gives them a larger sense of what they're doing.
Our freshman had so great resource as part of this FYE class, freshman experience. And we made music major only FYE classes. And we do that with faculty come in, it's great because they can only share their own stories. But they can also tell the freshmen, you know, over the years I've had students go on to become, you know, the air traffic controllers, or do this and this. And they've written to me and said I was able to use my music degree to think about this job in a creative way and to be about employment and so forth. But and at the same time, the students, the freshmen themselves, they write like reflective essays, mainly for themselves, or they're expected to share them with the teachers, whatever. They just write out, this is what I expect to be doing with my degree. And then the faculty come back and tell me that they're now having conversations with freshmen about like, what their career might look like and so forth, that they usually haven't had, I think, in the junior and senior year. So getting students to do like reflective essays is always like
So sorry, can you say a little bit more about how those other courses? So you're designing your own freshman year experience courses? And how many people are writing these essays? Is that across the board, or is that kind of your?
They're all supposed to, yeah,
all
freshmen. And then every year they come back and they're supposed to be revisiting what they said, and things are changing, and the idea is this, like, what you think you're going to be doing 5 years from now makes all the difference of how you engage what you're doing today. Like, if you're just going to the facts, you're not thinking about, like, what am I going to do this one day? You know, you have to it's
Or you might spend too much time just doing that one little thing and imitating someone else. That's the thing that I worry about with the professional degrees, is that they're thinking, oh, I'm going to, like, my follow-up question to what are you going to be doing in 5 years, if it's playing in a symphony orchestra where I'm getting a full-time salary, my question is, what research have you done about that possibility? How many people are going for it? How much are they paid? How long does orchestras stay in existence before they fold and reform? What happens politically when that happens? What happens to, and I was from Charleston when the orchestra folded and reformed, and it had a big social impact on the musicians, which kind of bifurcated between the symphony people and the freelance people, because they reformed without all the symphony people, who then became freelance people who then hire each other. And now it was actually hard for a lot of people then to get the full income because they weren't doing both. And so there's a lot of these things that, you know, we can make them aware of, but also like, okay, what research have you done? Have you looked at the audition list? How many auditions are there each year? How many graduates are there from here each year? And then add all the other schools that are ahead of us in the ranking and then keep going down and because I think when that happens, it's like, okay, do I want to spend 8 hours of every day playing this instrument, playing this rep? And I honestly think as an educator, it's a success if we open them up to start thinking about maybe moving around. But now I know institutionally that's not a success unless that moving around can still involve presence in our little part of the institution. And so that how exactly we go about that needs to be finessed and nuanced, and that's different each institution. But I think as people in front of us, we really need to have them thinking through these questions and how we can support them through that.
I was just reminded of a speaker that had come to an institution in abroad and stuff, who really mapped things out very succinctly about where his position, I'm trying to remember who it was, and I can't remember what position he was here. But he does have something to do with education and recruiting and stuff. Anyway, he said, my great-grandfather, he kind of aligned education and social progress. He said, my great-grandfather completed, was it grade 6 or grade 8 education? That was the minimum that was required, was what most people did. Learned everything he needed to know from that education and what his father taught him about running a farm. And did extremely well, supported his family and everything else. So his children, my grandfather, completed high school. That's what was needed for him to learn everything he needed to do, basically. And then from his community and his parents to live in the town and do whatever else was needed in the town. My parents completely, he's still his kid. My parents got an undergraduate degree and because they didn't become teachers. And that undergraduate degree put them to do everything that they needed to do to make a life for themselves and then learn whatever else they needed to do to survive in society. And their purview then was the city. So it went from farm to the town, the city. And he said, I have now done the high school, the undergrad degree, and the graduate degree. And my purview is working nationally. And I am not now expected to be able to hold even one position, but I might be able to hold different positions within my specialization. So there's this concept of specialization coming through as well, where he's still working as a specialist, but in different positions perhaps. So my daughter, her purview will be the world, it's global. And it's not going to be one career that she holds. She will need to have and be able to function in multiple careers. This is where things are going. The companies now don't last more than 10 years, they come and go. So what this next generation needs to be doing is being prepared for not just sort of multiple positions in one specialization, but multiple careers. So his point was coming toward liberal arts colleges in there. This is where your strength is, and this is what you need to be doing. So even this question about things people are pushing for preparedness for music careers, he was drawing our attention to the fact that that's an updated thing. If you are training somebody for a particular career, you're behind the times. Get with it. That was his message to us in the fall. So you wanted to know what are you doing for my daughter?
Megan, I feel like there's this recurring theme, at least that I see on Twitter throughout the day, between skills acquisition versus information acquisition or content acquisition. And in the context of this discussion, I can't help but wonder, like, what are those most important skills? Are they so what skills are the most transferable? Whatever that means. What skills are the most economically solvent, which is relevant to anybody who wants to live a life. And then perhaps third, what skills are the most like life enriching. So I mean, we're up maybe to come back to like religious instructors, like maybe if we could answer those questions for ourselves, then maybe that's how we can figure out what we need to teach. But what skills are most enriching, what skills are transferable, and just be inclusive, which are useful for the job.
Music always had a thing on the last one, the life enriching part. So that's nice.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Learning more music, even if you do just do it as content acquisition, that will probably enrich somebody's life.
I mean, I was thinking some more about your essays, the essays that you're talking about. Because the time you like to focus on what do you envision doing in 5 years, right? Was that kind of the question? Or
5 or 10 years out.
right? Because I guess the question I would want to ask is, we just want to ask them to reflect. Just because reflection is so useful on their experiences, like this year, within a given year, what's been most meaningful to you, what have you been confused about, what have you been frustrated with, to do a kind of process of reflection. I mean, it's not necessarily, here's where I'm headed.
Yeah, there's one of like 6 prompts looking. What are the things, what did you just major, what values and experiences led you to this?
Right, so that there's context in which those very personal individual conversations happen. I think this ties in actually to the issue of career, because if people are reflecting within individual relations, where they have someone to talk to about these things, and the context, I think that can help people orient towards where they want to go.
And it's too bad that we don't have like the general music class where students have to do that for the whole curriculum. But music theory is usually part of the core, so it seems like it's totally outside our purview as students to have that.
Well, and I took the title, which I created, musicianship, for the combined theory and oral skills program that we created at Charleston, as somewhat of a permission to then engage, what is musicianship aside from, notes and rhythms and chords and performing and analyzing. And so that could be something like, okay, while you're working on a project, let's look at those Schedule C tax forms, because you're going to lose a lot of money if you take the H&R Block and have them do it for you as a freelance musician. And just say, they're not going to do it right. You got to never do it for yourself. It could be really simple, skills like that, which are admittedly neoliberal. I just meant, it's not a deep, mysteries of life. I guess maybe it is still to some people. That form isn't too bad. But, it could be things like that, but then also opening up some of those questions. We had in that same week, what are the careers that, what are our majors? And then what are other careers out there that involve music, either directly or tangentially? And then we asked, and what if those are growing? Which is really interesting for them to see. Things like music therapy is growing.
It's still here.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because insurance doesn't cover.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you're in a big music therapy school. And so, yeah, it was good to go through that and say, okay, so here's a program where, like, maybe as a musician, you wouldn't think about doing this, but music can play a big role in this. You might need a master's degree in that other field and then put it together. But there were a number of things we just, and this was mostly from them, like, what's this list? And people, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know that existed. And it's still sophomore year. There's time to kind of like shift gears or take a bunch of classes and kind of reorient themselves. And it's still within the field of music. But there are more options than performer, composer, teacher, theorist, musicologist. And it's good even just to open up that, see what could you do if you're double majoring already, or if it's still early enough that you could add that double major or a minor that will then prepare you to do an internship and then do that job. Those are things that we're not sending them to the engineering school so that they can make some money, because they'll lose a lot of it too, but, you know, like opening up what else is tied to what you love. There's this Venn diagram, there's a few versions of it going around there. It's like, you know, what do you love? And what are you good at? And what will people pay you for well? And the goal is to get all three to overlap. You know, it's just like if two, you know, one is like your passion, one is your occupation, you know, but then like the sweet spot is where all three overlap. And I think sometimes we get in this like the what you love and what pays well, you know, like especially musicians, you should do it for the love of the art. You shouldn't do it for the money. And it's like, well, no, you got to eat if you're going to play your instrument. You got to have a family and all that. And so there's ways to overlap, and that's not cheap. That's not unartistic to want to make a living as an artist and to want to learn how to do that. And so we can engage some of those questions as well. I think those belong. I mean, it doesn't belong specifically in any one of the courses that's required for the degree in most places, and therefore it belongs in all of our conversations, whether it's in class or out. I think we need to be having conversations in a lot of places about it.
We have a few more minutes. So Chris, you mentioned on Twitter that obviously life enrichment is great, but also great would be to think about justice and equity. You've already also mentioned this in our conversation. I'm curious, I mean, it may not be obvious to people as you're teaching the technical elements of music, how to talk about justice and equity. Can you share ways that you would, or if other people, other than, I mean, I know people do teach classes, music and social justice, or music and social change, or whatever, but, you know, in a theory class.
I mean, part is just the technical divide. It's just are all our incoming students able to afford the technology that we would like them to be using? Because for some people, even Wi-Fi or some sort of internet connection away from school isn't
Or a
something
computer.
that they have. Yeah, I mean, not even a computer or a smartphone.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my concern in the sense of, I think we're all lucky enough to be at institutions where our students maybe don't have as much problems acquiring technology for what we would like them to be able to do in the classroom. But across the board, for all possible other institutions, what is that? You know, what does that mean for our field? If there are going to be some places that can do that and some places can't, what does that mean for students' future job opportunities?
I mean, a couple things for me have been, when I started flipping, I noticed really quickly the limits of bandwidth and internet access that my students had, even in the dorms on campus, because of the network not being as robust as in some places. And so that was one of the motivations for using more text and video for the resources I was creating. I mean, another aspect of that, this is something where I have to go back into my older materials and start fixing this up, and just accessibility, making sure that we do create innovative things that use technology, that it's accessible across the spectrum as much as possible. Thinking about, I think it's more for K through 12, but thinking about the implications of work done outside of class in general, if home is a stressful environment as opposed to like a safe place, or if you're not supported by family
If
or
you're
whatever.
working 12 hours.
Yeah, thinking about non-traditional students. I mean, I think we kind of write ourselves out of having a lot of non-traditional students if we have all theory and all skills classes on alternate days, weekdays in the mornings. There are a lot of people that can't do that. I've talked to some students that have had a really hard time, and I've done independent study on the off days so that they could get all their classes on campus in 2 days because they had to work full-time the other 3. And so, I mean, some of that could be scheduling concerns, but some of it's just thinking about how our plans for class and our pedagogy impact students in those situations, as opposed to just the residential undergrads that no one in their families in the hospital, no one's having any kind of big emotional or psychological difficulties. I mean, I think we kind of plan around everybody being happy-go-lucky and pretty A-okay and upper middle class, and that's just not the case. And so just thinking about the implications of that in our general plans.
And also just being able to be flexible in the moment, you know, if something comes up, and to give our students, you know, some humanity, that they are people and we're working with people. I think so often it's easy to forget, you know, especially You know, you have a grade book and all the numbers are all done for you and okay, well, you know, let me just put in these columns and go through and I don't need to know who my students are and it's week 4 and I don't know their names. And, you know, I think that's, you know, it's a stereotype for some college professors, but I think the reality is that we've probably all experienced that on some level at some point in our teaching. And I think it's always really important to make sure that we are humans to our students and that the students are humans to us, and that it is a community and that our classroom is a community and not just a here, come and learn stuff.
I think also, I mean, I think we talked about this, you know, the dead white men and the canon. And I think a lot of the student centeredness we're talking about is a really good way to eliminate that focus, that the diversity of the classroom becomes the diversity of the canon. The canon is what you're doing here. I also really like what Jenny Snodgrass did in her new textbook that just came out, where she has an artist in residence in each chapter. And at first I was like, okay, that's a fun little thing to do. You got Rascal Flatts and Michael Jackson and, you know, Renee Fleming. And I was like, wait a minute. Now, like each chapter, like it's not just dead white dudes for like 300 pages. Like there's all kinds of different musicians, from all kinds of different backgrounds and ethnicities and cultural positions and socioeconomic positions. Like that's a really good way to get a textbook that is about an art where a lot of the stuff is just dead white guys, to be much more diverse and to see, hey, like this music isn't just about the composers that lived 300 years ago. It's about the people making music now, and that's why they're important, is because it's important for these people. And hey, these people all represent the same kind of diversity that we have.
What is this?
Contemporary musicianship by Jennifer Snodgrass. It's designed for our students. It doesn't go past what most of us would consider first year theory. It's kind of designed as a music fundamentals course for people who are oriented somewhat towards music business. But I think it's a great text for a fundamentals class.
I've got a review copy if you want.
It just came out. Shall we adjourn?
Sure. We wanted to talk a little bit about dinner for people who want to go out, and then a couple things for tomorrow. I'm just tweeting a couple more links here.
While you're doing that, I'll just say the Google Doc has some notes that I took about. We got on a lot of different subjects, and so yeah, maybe useful.
Well, and then we can always go back and do a Twitter search and get something as well. Thanks for those joining us online. We're going to talk about stuff you don't get to participate in right now. So.
Let everyone, before they go, if they want to read the PBL article, that's what we can do for this next hour, or sometime before 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Okay, so the PBL article from Engaging Students, Volume 2. It's flipcamp.org/engaging students.
It's linked on the schedule and the session.
And it's linked on the schedule Google Doc. Yay. All right. See y'all later.